3.5 days.
3.5 days.
Rocky was an ultimate underdog story. After all the sequels, spin-offs, and years of pop culture legend, it's possible to forget how successful the movie was. So let's go back to where it all started, before the fame, the statues, and the training montages. Here are 20 things you might not know about Rocky. 20. It was based on a real boxer. Sylvester Stallone was a down-on-his-luck actor when he got the inspiration for Rocky. His bank account had a total of around $100. He had no significant sources of income, and he was struggling to find a steady job through which he could gain sustenance. Then, one night, while watching television, he saw something that caught his interest: the 1975 heavyweight title fight that transpired between Muhammad Ali and Chuck Wepner. Wepner, nicknamed the Bayon Bleeder, was considered a massive underdog. Yet, to everyone's shock, he managed to go 15 grueling rounds with the legendary Ali before being knocked out. This was a display of grit, heart, and raw determination. The bout deeply moved Stallone, and he began writing Rocky almost immediately. He was so determined that he reportedly wrote the first draft in just 3 days. While he has consistently stated that Rocky wasn't directly based on Wepner's life, the similarities were striking. An unknown boxer, given a once-in-a-lifetime shot at the world champion, rises above expectations. Chuck Wepner bluntly refused to succumb to Stallone's claims of coincidence. He firmly believed that the story was modeled after his own experience, so he eventually filed a lawsuit against Stallone. The matter didn't go to trial. Both parties agreed to settle privately, and the terms were never disclosed to the public. 19. Stallone was insistent that he is a star. The most remarkable thing about Rocky isn't just the screenplay Sylvester Stallone wrote, but that he refused to let anyone else play the title role. At the time, Stallone was virtually unknown in Hollywood. He had done a few minor acting gigs, but he was far from a household name. When his agents began shopping the Rocky script around, it quickly caught the attention of several major studios, including United Artists, and they were genuinely impressed by the story's emotional depth and raw energy and saw the film's potential. However, one central sticking point was that Stallone had demanded to play Rocky Balboa himself. He didn't buy the idea of hiring anybody to take the role. The studios wanted a proven box office draw. Names like Robert Redford, Burt Reynolds, and Ryan O'Neal were floated for the role. From a business perspective, casting a star made sense, but Stallone wouldn't even budge. He was offered as much as $350,000 for the script alone, but he turned it down every single time unless it was a film that he could also star in. Stallone later said that even if the movie failed, he'd rather fail on his terms than sell out the heart of the story. Eventually, United Artists relented, but they did so with a condition. The film would have to be made on a shoestring budget. 18. There was a catch to the deal. Though Sylvester Stallone ultimately got the chance to star in the film he wrote, something he fought so hard for. But there was a catch. United Artists, though intrigued by the Rocky script, only agreed to allow Stallone to play the lead under one strict condition, which was that the movie had to be made on a very low budget, very afforded to all who needed it. It was an idea that could have saved the situation because they were not willing to take a significant financial risk on an unproven actor. Stallone, determined to see his vision come to life, agreed without hesitation. The studio allocated just over $1 million for the film's production. This was a shoestring budget, even by 1976 standards. That one decision effectively turned Rocky into a side bet for other United Artists. They were suddenly more focused on bigger, more prestigious projects, particularly in New York. New York, a highly anticipated musical drama directed by Martin Scorsese and starring Robert De Niro and Liza Minnelli. They assumed that Rocky might not succeed at all, but reasoned that if it flopped, the profits from New York would cover any losses. Ironically, the exact opposite happened. While Rocky went on to become a box office smash and a cultural phenomenon, New York underperformed. Stallone's modest little film about a scrappy underdog proved to be the real knockout, both financially and critically, while the studio's big budget bet faded quietly into the background. 17. A real boxer almost played Apollo Creed. Apollo Creed is one of the most iconic characters in the Rocky franchise. He's a confident, charismatic, and powerful heavyweight champion inspired in part by Muhammad Ali. But before Carl Weathers landed the role and brought Apollo to life, the filmmakers already had someone else in mind, who is nobody but the real-life heavyweight boxer Ken Norton. Ken Norton wasn't just an ordinary boxer. He was a former world champion who had fought Muhammad Ali countless times, famously breaking Ali's jaw in their first match and winning by decision. With his imposing presence and authentic boxing experience, Norton seemed to the world like a natural fit to portray a champion like Creed. The idea of casting a real boxer gave the film added credibility, and Norton's athletic background would have required less technical coaching in the ring. However, Norton ultimately passed on the role for reasons that have never been fully clarified. Some people say it was scheduling conflicts, while others point to creative disagreements. That opened the door for Carl Weathers, a former professional football player who had played in college and briefly in the Canadian Fall League, CFL. Weathers did not just bring athleticism, he also got a very bold theatrical flair that perfectly fit the character of Apollo. His chemistry with Stallone and his ability to embody both bravado and heart helped elevate Rocky to the classic that it became and launched Weathers into stardom. 16. Talia Shire was cast late. The casting of Adrian Panino, Rocky's shy love interest, was a very tough process. One would think it wouldn't even work out anymore, and in fact, it went down right to the wire. The filmmakers knew that they needed someone who could convincingly portray Adrian's sluggish awkwardness, vulnerability, and eventual transformation. But finding the right actress proved challenging. Initially, the role was offered to actress Carrie Snodgrass, who is well known for her work in Diary of a Mad Housewife. She accepted the part, but a financial dispute soon followed. Given the film's razor-thin budget, negotiations fell apart quickly, and Snodgrass walked away from the project. That left the production team scrambling for a replacement. That's not a knock on Sarandon's talent or appearance. As it looked, it was instead a matter of finding someone whose look and demeanor naturally aligned with the character's timid personality at the beginning of the story. Eventually, the role went to Talia Shire, who brought a soft authenticity to Adrian that won over both the filmmakers and audiences. Shire, the sister of director Francis Ford Coppola, had previously earned recognition in The Godfather. Her performance in Rocky earned her an Oscar nomination and a permanent place in film history. 15. One boxer did make a cameo appearance. While it was discovered that Ken Norton didn't end up portraying Apollo Creed, Rocky still featured an absolute heavyweight boxing legend named Joe Frazier. Known as Smokin' Joe, Frazier was one of the sport's all-time greats, and his rivalry with Muhammad Ali is etched in boxing history. His appearance in the film is brief but notable, as he makes a cameo as himself during the lead-up to the big fight between Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed. Frazier's presence added an extra layer of authenticity and credibility to the film's boxing world. Though his role is short, his face was immediately recognizable to boxing fans at the time, helping blur the line between Rocky's fictional universe and real-life professional boxing. Interestingly, Joe Frazier didn't just show up on screen. He also indirectly inspired a few of the movie's now iconic moments. One of those is that detail to further ground Rocky's gritty, blue-collar underdog character. Though his cameo lasts mere moments, Frazier's inclusion is a fun Easter egg for boxing fans and a reminder of the film's deep roots in the real-world fight game. 14. Mickey had another iconic role. For so many of his fans, the world forever remembers Burgess Meredith as Mickey Goldmill, Rocky Balboa's gruff and gravel-voiced as A. With his worn-out hat, raspy pep talks, and tough love approach, Mickey became one of the most beloved mentor figures in film history. But for audiences who had been watching TV long before Rocky hit theaters, Burgess Meredith was already a familiar face. Here, he was only acting in a very different role. Before stepping into the gritty world of boxing, Meredith gained widespread popularity in the year 1960 for playing one of Batman's most notorious villains named the Penguin. In the campy, colorful Batman television series starring Adam West, Meredith's Penguin was the exact opposite of Mickey. He was flashy, theatrical, and full of sneaky schemes, complete with a signature laugh and umbrella gadgets. Clad in a tuxedo, top hat, monocle, and with a cigarette holder permanently clenched between his teeth, the Penguin was cartoonish and flamboyant. This was a far cry from the raw, worn-down trainer that we later saw in Rocky. It's a testament to Meredith's range as an actor that he could seamlessly jump from the over-the-top world of comic book villains to the emotional, grounded realism of Rocky. His performance as Mickey earned him critical acclaim and even an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Though generations may know him too well for different roles, Meredith's legacy remains unforgettable. 13. It was a family affair. Rocky was a passion project for Sylvester Stallone, and when the opportunity finally came to bring it to life, he did not hesitate to get his loved ones involved. He made the publicity so loud that all his friends and family members had no choice but to participate. With the film operating on a modest budget and every resource stretched thin, Stallone turned to the people who were closest to him, which were his family. Their contributions may have flown under the radar, but they were being woven into the fabric of the film. Stallone's younger brother, Frank Stallone, appears briefly in the movie as the leader of the street corner doo-wop group singing "Take You Back." The scene adds a unique flavor to the neighborhood atmosphere, and Frank's voice spices it up with a very authentic, soulful edge. Interestingly, Frank Stallone would later go on to have his own music and acting career, but Rocky was one of his earliest on-screen appearances. Their father, Frank Stallone Sr., also got a featured role. He's the man who rings the bell at the start of the boxing rounds. It's a blink and you'll miss it cameo, but it's still a fun detail for fans to know. Even behind the scenes, it stayed in the family. Stallone's then-wife, Sasha Sack, served as the movie's still photographer. While the spotlight was mainly on Sylvester, Rocky was, in many ways, a collaborative labor of love shared by the people closest to him. 12. A future TV icon made his debut. Before becoming a science fiction legend, it's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but it marked the beginning of a career that would later blast off into interstellar fame. Nobody even guessed so. Most of his fans know Dorn best as Worf, the stern and honorable Klingon officer on Star Trek: The Next Generation and Star Trek: Deep Space Nine. With his distinctive Klingon forehead ridges, deep voice, and towering presence, Dorn became one of the most recognizable characters in the Star Trek universe and holds the record for most appearances of any actor in the franchise. But back in the year 1976, he was just getting started, and he had no idea how all these would be just yet. In Rocky, Dorn does not have any dialogue or close-ups, and he's not listed in the credits at all. His job was to stand beside Carl Weathers' Apollo Creed and look intimidating. Still, it's a fascinating bit of trivia for sci-fi fans and Rocky lovers alike. Who would have thought that one of the future faces of Starfleet Command made his humble debut in a gritty boxing movie about an underdog from Philly? 11. It was an early use of the Steadicam. Today, Steadicam technology is standard in filmmaking and used everywhere from action movies to TV dramas to smooth out movement and create dynamic shots without the shakiness of handheld filming. But back in the mid-1970s, it was still a brand new invention, and Rocky became one of the first films to put it to memorable use. The Steadicam was invented by Garrett Brown. It allows filmmakers to move the camera fluidly while tracking motion, something that was difficult to achieve with traditional dollies or handheld rigs. In Rocky, the Steadicam was most famously used during Rocky's training montage, specifically the scene where he runs through the streets of Philadelphia and triumphantly charges up the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. That shot, which became one of the most iconic images in cinema, wouldn't have been possible if this new technology had not been invented. Interestingly, Rocky was the third film to utilize the Steadicam. It was first used in Bound for Glory in the year 1976, followed by Marathon Man also in 1976. But Rocky was the movie that truly showcased its potential to the world. It gave the underdog story a sense of energy, momentum, and realism that would inspire countless imitators. It was the perfect tool for a film about movement, struggle, and rising above. 10. One scene was tweaked to save money. One of the most tender and memorable scenes in Rocky is when Rocky takes Adrian ice skating for their first real date. 'Twas quite an emotional day. The rink is empty except for the two of them, creating a solemn, intimate moment that perfectly captures their awkward yet growing connection. But this wasn't the initial plan they had. Initially, that scene was written to take place during regular business hours, with dozens of skaters on the ice. However, the production's tight budget could not accommodate the cost of hiring and costuming so many extras. Instead of scrapping the scene entirely, the filmmakers cleverly rewrote it so that Rocky bribes a janitor to let them skate after hours. No extras needed at all. Ironically, this budget workaround made the scene even more special. The empty rink added to Rocky and Adrian's emotional vulnerability, making it one of the most heartfelt moments in the film, and proving that limitations can sometimes lead to creative brilliance. 9. Both boxers got beat up. Filming a realistic boxing movie comes with bruises, obviously, and Rocky was no exception. While the fights were choreographed and carefully rehearsed, things still got rough in the ring. Sylvester Stallone and Carl Weathers were fully committed to delivering believable performances, which meant throwing and taking real punches now and then. By the end of filming, both men had the battle scars to prove that they did something. Carl Weathers ended up with a banged-up nose after repeated takes, while Stallone suffered more severe injuries, including bruised ribs and a swollen face. At one point, Stallone even had to be hospitalized after taking a brutal hit during filming. These real-life injuries added a gritty, authentic edge to the fight scenes, helping audiences feel every jab, hook, and uppercut. The physical toll on both actors ultimately helped to sell the brutal realism of the final match, one of the most iconic cinematic boxing sequences of all time. 8. The theme song was a huge hit. By the time composer Bill Conti was brought on to score Rocky, the production didn't have much money to offer him for bringing him in. Initially written for the now iconic training montage, these songs perfectly captured the spirit of perseverance and triumph. Audiences were immediately drawn to their uplifting rhythm and motivational energy, and they exploded in popular culture. Gonna Fly Now went on to top the Billboard Hot 100 chart, holding the #1 spot for a week in 1977. For a song that was created on a shoestring budget, its impact was overly applaudable, proving that passion and creativity can shine even when resources are limited. 7. It was a box office smash. Made on a shoestring budget and starring an unknown actor, the film was a gamble for United Artists, but that gamble paid off big time. Against all the odds, Rocky became a massive box office hit. It earned an impressive sum of $117 million in the United States and Canada alone, with a worldwide total of $225 million. Adjusted for inflation, that's well over $1 billion today. Rocky was the highest-grossing film of 1976, and it continued to rake in money into 1977, finishing in second place at the box office that year, just behind Star Wars. Ironically, United Artists had initially expected Rocky to flop and planned to rely on Martin Scorsese's New York, New York to recoup costs. In the end, it was Rocky that saved the day, while New York, New York underperformed. The true underdog ended up delivering the knockout blow. 6. It won the big one. Rocky Balboa may have lost the fight in the ring, but Rocky, the film, walked away a true champion. At the 49th Academy Awards, the movie won 3 Oscars: Best Film Editing, Best Director for John G. Avildsen, and the coveted Best Picture. Audiences were not only moved by the story, but also by the raw emotion in every scene. They were moved by the sweat, the grit, the pounding of fists echoing in the ring, and a host of other features. Visually, Rocky felt authentic and unpolished, matching its underdog spirit. The crowd's cheers, the roar of the bell, and the swelling music added layers of triumph to its soundscape. But not everyone agreed with the Academy's choice, and in hindsight, some questioned whether Rocky truly deserved Best Picture over contenders like Taxi Driver, Network, and All the President's Men. In 2015, The Hollywood Reporter polled Academy members for a do-over vote, and guessing the result, it would amaze you to find out that All the President's Men took the prize almost 40 years later. Yet what Rocky lacked in political complexity or technical grandeur, it made up for in heart. It was a movie that connected with everyday people, the dreamers, the fighters, the ones who keep going even when the odds are against them. It captured a uniquely American resilience, and that emotional punch resonated far beyond critics' reviews or awards night opinions. Many decades later, Rocky remains more than a film. It is a cultural symbol. Statues, quotes, parodies, and even real-world inspiration all trace back to this unlikely cinematic triumph. Whether or not it was the best film of 1976, in an artistic sense, few would argue that any other movie has had quite the same lasting impact. Rocky has become required viewing for anyone chasing a dream. Coaches play their training montages in locker rooms, motivational speakers quote their lines, and aspiring filmmakers study it as a masterclass in doing more with less. Its legacy reaches far beyond Hollywood, touching lives in gyms, classrooms, and boardrooms worldwide. At its core, Rocky isn't just about boxing, it's about passion and belief. Belief in yourself, even when no one else sees your worth. That's the primary essence that earned it its Oscars, box office success, and timeless place in the hearts of millions. 5. There have been a lot of sequels. Rocky started as a humble underdog story, but it quickly became one of film history's most enduring franchises. After the original film's massive success, 5 sequels followed between 1979 and 2006, and each of them continued Rocky Balboa's journey from small-time boxer to international icon. The series took some bold turns, most notably in Rocky IV, where Rocky steps into the Cold War ring and delivers a speech that helps thaw U.S.-Soviet tensions. Michael B. Jordan stars as Adonis Creed, the son of Apollo, with Sylvester Stallone returning to mentor the next generation. The Creed films have been both critically and commercially successful, with 3 entries so far. And the story might not even be over. There's been ongoing talk of a Rocky prequel series exploring Balboa's early life and proving that this cinematic fighter still has rounds left to go. 4. Rocky made a set of stairs. Famous. One of the most iconic scenes in Rocky is the triumphant moment when he runs up the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art during his training montage. Arms raised in victory, he turns to face the city, symbolizing his rising hope and determination. That moment became so iconic that those 72 stone steps leading up to the museum are now known as the Rocky Steps. Over the years, the scene has been parodied countless times in movies, shows, and commercials, cementing its place in pop culture. Tourists from around the world visit the site to reenact Rocky's run and strike the same victorious pose. Adding to the legend, there's now a bronze statue of Rocky near the base of the steps. Interestingly, it wasn't commissioned by the city, but by Stallone himself during the filming of Rocky III. What started as a movie moment became a lasting piece of American film history. 3. There's a Rocky musical. Believe it or not, the underdog boxer from Philadelphia made his way to the musical stage, and yes, Rocky became a full-fledged Broadway musical, and it all started in an unexpected place, Hamburg, Germany. The stage adaptation, titled Rocky Das Musical, premiered in 2012 and was surprisingly well received. Combining the emotional core of the original film with live-action boxing and musical numbers, the show brought a fresh, theatrical twist to the beloved story. Due to its success in Germany, The musical made its way to Broadway in 2014, with Sylvester Stallone himself involved in its production. It opened at the Winter Garden Theater in New York and featured original songs alongside some other highly classic Rocky themes like Gonna Fly Now and Eye of the Tiger. Though it received praise for its innovative stage design and final fight sequence, which brought the boxing ring into the audience, the Broadway run was relatively short-lived. It closed in August 2014 after just 188 performances. Still, Rocky, the musical remains a fascinating chapter in the franchise's legacy, proof that Rocky's story of perseverance and heart transcends not just film, but language and genre as well. 2. Stallone almost sold his dog to survive. Before Rocky became a global phenomenon, Sylvester Stallone was a struggling actor facing severe financial hardship. At one point, he was so broke that he had to sell his beloved bull mastiff, Butkus, to afford food. Stallone was heartbroken over the decision, but felt he had no choice. He reportedly sold the dog outside a liquor store for around $40, a painful moment that reflected just how desperate things had become. But fate had other plans. After Stallone sold the Rocky script and secured the lead role, he returned to repurchase Butkus. The man who had purchased the dog initially refused until Stallone offered him a hefty sum. According to Stallone, he paid $15,000 to get Butkus back. In a beautiful twist, Butkus ended up appearing in the first two Rocky films as Rocky's loyal companion. His inclusion was sentimental and symbolic of the loyalty and grit at the heart of Rocky's story. For Stallone, Butkus represented a piece of his real-life struggle, and having him on screen was a full-circle moment. That bond between man and dog quietly echoed the deeper themes of Rocky, which are perseverance, heart, and the will to fight for what you love. 1. Rocky was added to the National Film Registry. In 2006, exactly 30 years after its release, Rocky was officially recognized as a national treasure. The Library of Congress selected the film for preservation in the United States National Film Registry. This honor is reserved for films that are considered culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The selection wasn't just about box office numbers or any critical acclaim. It was about the movie's impact on American culture. Rocky inspired generations with its story of grit, hope, and determination. It resonated not only with boxing fans, but with anyone who has ever felt like an underdog fighting for a shot. The film captured the spirit of working-class America and gave a voice to those whose stories were often overlooked. Its cinematography, performances, and unforgettable score helped to define a new kind of sports drama: raw, emotional, and deeply human. Rocky's addition to the National Film Registry ensures that it will be preserved for future generations, not just as a piece of entertainment, but as a landmark in cinematic history. Like the character himself, the film went the distance and earned its place in the annals of greatness. How many did you know before, and how many are you just finding out? Share your thoughts in the comments. Remember to hit the like button and subscribe. Before you go, click on the video displayed on your screen.